Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's 5 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So if you would stand with me, and I'll start us in the pledge, and Mr. Colbert will lead us in our prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pray.
Father, we thank you for this time. We thank you for the opportunity to serve the city, Lord. We ask that your blessing be on the city and on its leadership, Lord, and on our armed forces, Lord. As we celebrate our holidays, we might be reminded of all the things we're thankful for, especially your Son, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Roy. I want to call this meeting of the Planning Commission, July 3rd, 2018, to order. Have roll call, please.
Compton.
Here.
Covert.
Here.
Haney. Here. Mueller. Parker.
Here.
Parsley. Pinedo.
Here.
Powell.
Here.
Tyler.
Here. We have enough for a quorum. I'd like to entertain a motion for approval of minutes for the June meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the
We have a
June.
motion.
Second.
Second by Mr. Covert. Roll call. Oh, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. It does pass. Our first agenda on the item here is our tabled items will be the R18-24 First Marshall East Full Gospel Church, 1799 Butterfield Coach Road, from A1 to P1, presented by Randy Ritchie.
Randy Ritchie is stuck in traffic on I-49. He said that he would be here as quickly as possible. We can talk about it.
Okay, we will go to the next item until Mr. Ritchie shows up. Our next item on the agenda will be a public hearing for rezoning. It will be R18-28 NWA Community College, due west of Arvis Ballpark, from C2 to P1, presented by McClellan Engineering. If you'll state your name for the record, please, and address.
Nathan Street with McClellan Engineers, 1810 North College, Fayetteville.
Okay, go ahead.
NWAC is requesting to rezone this property from C2 to P1. We have an LSD also on the agenda, here to answer any questions you may have.
Staff comments.
The adopted comprehensive land use plan indicates commercial use for the area. The rezoning request is in keeping with the following goals and policies of the comprehensive land use plan and is recommended for approval. Acquisition of desired sites will in advance of need. Community facilities should be centrally located in easily accessible areas with the city adjacent to major streets to accommodate traffic, well buffered from nearby residential areas, and on adequate sized parcels to accommodate future expansion.
Do you have any comments from the audience on this issue? If not, to the commission.
Call for the vote.
Got a call for the vote from Ms. Haney. Roll call.
Compton.
Yes.
Covert.
Yes.
Haney.
Yes.
Parker. Pinedo.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Tyler.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Staff will prepare the ordinance and it goes to council on July the 24th.
Our next item is R18-29, Victory Church NWA Incorporated, 5441 Deering Road, from C2 to C5, presented by Timothy Kaufman.
You knew what I was going to ask, didn't you? Thank you. Oh, he's here too anyway. Okay, we're good, either way.
Well, good. Jason Apple with Engineering Services. We're here requesting this property rezone from C2 to C5. That's approximately 15 acres on the southeast corner of Don Tyson and Gene George Boulevard. And I'll answer any questions.
Staff comments.
The comprehensive land use plan indicates regional commercial use for the area. The rezoning request is in keeping with the following goals and policies of the comprehensive land use plan is recommended for approval. Improve the city's economic base and tax structure through the promotion of healthy, stable commercial concentrations, assure adequate land allocation for commercial areas of sufficient size and in proper locations, and encourage the development of a wide range of commercial development for the resident and tourists to include neighborhood, community, and regional centers.
Is there any comments from the audience on this issue? To the commission. This will be called for the vote. Mr. Covert? Roll call.
Covert? Haney?
Yes.
Parker? Pineda?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Tyler? Compton?
Passes 7-0.
Staff will prepare the ordinance that goes to council on the 24th.
Thank you.
Our next item on the agenda will be R18-30, Clayton and Vanessa Bearden, 4368 South 48th Street, from A1 to O1, presented by Clayton or Vanessa Bearden. You'll state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Clayton Bearden. It's my wife, Vanessa Bearden. The address is 4368 South 48th Street in Springdale, Arkansas. So we're requesting that this property be rezoned from A1 to O1 for our home business that we have, property damage appraisers.
Except you won't be conducting it as home, in a home business. You will be conducting it as a business in a residential structure, but nobody will live there, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Staff comments?
The adopted comprehensive land use plan indicates commercial use for the area. The rezoning request is in keeping with the following goals and policies of the comprehensive land use plan is recommended for approval. Approve the city's economic base and the tax structure through the promotion of healthy, stable commercial concentrations. Assure adequate land allocation for commercial areas of sufficient size and proper locations. Encourage the development of office and professional uses that provide a transition between residential areas and other more intense uses with reasonable building height limitations, adequate buffering and landscaping to ensure compatibility.
Do we have any comments from the audience on this issue? To the commission.
Call for the vote?
Call for the vote from Ms. Haney. Roll
Haney?
Yes.
Parker? Pineda?
Yes.
Powell?
call. Yes.
Tyler? Compton? Covert?
Passes 7-0.
Staff will prepare the ordinance that goes to council on July the 24th.
Thank you.
Our next item on the agenda will be a public hearing, conditional use, C18-16, Big Sexy Truck, Brent Hale, 205 East Johnson Avenue, Use Unit 44 in Center Type 1, presented by Brent Hale.
He just texted me and said that he caught up with something, he's on his way here.
Okay? Take that one. We'll go on to the next agenda, which will be C18-17, Southwest Springdale 49 LLC, east side of South 56th Street, approximately 600 feet south of DDP, Don Tyson Parkway, tandem lot split, presented by Engineering Services Incorporated.
Thank you, Jason Apple with ESI. So we're kind of, with this request, we're trying to split off the property for Highlands Oncology so they can close prior to the final plat of the Parkway Plaza Project Phase 1. So we're under construction with that project. Anticipate closing and finishing that project probably near the end of July, 1st of August. But we've kind of wanted to make sure that we had everything in line. And so we're just requesting this. It's tandem currently, but as soon as that plat's filed, it will be a lot in that Parkway subdivision. So I'll answer any questions.
Staff comments?
It's kind of the same situation we did with when Sam's came in. We did a conditional tandem lot for it so it could go ahead and move forward. This one has a second one in that area where it used to be the old landfill is not included in the property that's going to be sold with Highland Oncology. It will truly be a tandem lot that will have an access easement on the north side of that. All of that will be covered with the preliminary plat. It'll become common area.
Correct. It's not going to be a buildable lot.
Right.
It's going to be a green space kind of for that whole Parkway Plaza project. So it'll be maintained by the POA once that's formed.
So it's a little bit more unique in that we're creating two at this point because Highland is not taking the ownership of the area where the old landfill used to be. So staff recommends that we move this forward so they can close on the property. We know they're working on the preliminary plat. The construction of the road is underway. We should have the final plat very quickly. So
Does anybody in the audience have any comments to this issue? It's to the commission.
Call for the vote.
Call for the vote. Ms. Haney, roll call.
Parker?
Yes.
Pineda?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Compton?
Yes.
Covert?
Yes.
Haney?
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Continue on. We're going to preliminary plats, replats, and final plats. PP 18-03 Butterfield Coach subdivision, east side of Butterfield Coach Road, north of Julio, and south of 412 East, presented by James Koch. You need to
Hello.
state your name and address, please.
Yeah, my name is James Koch. I'm the project representative. I live in Fayetteville, Post Office Box 415, 72702. This is a 5-acre parcel of land, 14 residential lots. The large lot in the southwest corner is detention, stormwater detention. The maximum size homes that can be built on this, total square footage of covered areas, according to the fire marshal, with the way we've got this designed, is 4,800 square feet. Pretty simple layout, about 500 feet of street, ending in a cul-de-sac.
Staff comments.
You said the maximum size of the structures could be 48. What's the minimum? Is there a minimum established for this?
I don't think that we discussed minimums. According to the developer, we're thinking that these are probably going to be around 2,000, 2,500 square foot homes, something in that ballpark.
The detention facility that's on the very front of the subdivision, is that going to be a landscaped, anything around that too? Or is it just going to be a?
We had discussed, doing some things in that area to allow for the community to use that easement area. At this point, I think that we've only really planned for doing some sort of vegetative landscaping in the area. There is a public utility easement on the north boundary and on the west boundary of that area at the present time. There is space and some area in there where we could probably do a little bit of some light landscaping or something like that wouldn't prevent access to it. I know that the engineering review that we've gone through up to this point wanted to have a 20-foot wide access perimeter around the 100-year water surface elevation, which may be something that we can work on and reduce or do something differently there. Certainly within the interior of that pond, having some additional plantings would probably be good for water quality filtration. So those are things that we are receptive to.
Is this subdivision going to have a POA?
Actually, yes. Chad White, the developer, has indicated that he plans to have a covenants, I say that a property owners association and covenants are two different things. We have discussed covenants for the development. I don't know that they're going to establish a formal property owners association for this small residential subdivision, but we have discussed covenants. Okay.
So the detention facility lot itself will be deeded over to the city after 2 years, Ryan? Is Ryan back there? Carl, somebody from engineering back there?
Actually, what they asked for was to make this a permanent easement. And so it would be something that I would assume would be the city's easement area, but the subdivision could be responsible for maintaining that area too. Not sure how we're going to go about accomplishing that, but those are things that I expected to work out during the review process here.
Okay. Other comments, this is actually zoned SF3, medium density, single family residential district. That needs to be reflected on the plat. You need to be aware that the master street plan with design you chose does not allow for parking on the street. That needs to be noted on the plat itself.
Did you receive the revised plat that I submitted?
When
this
did you
week?
submit it?
After I received those comments,
Okay,
we
and
made
did-
those changes.
Did you adjust the front setback? They all have to be 35 feet?
35, yeah,
Okay.
35-foot setbacks. I've addressed all those comments, yes, ma'am.
And the utility easement is a public utility easement?
That's correct.
And you've deconflicted the proposed drainage easement with the 15-foot utility easement that's already there on Butterfield Coast that the newly proposed can tie without overlapping the drainage easement. Did you get all that taken care of?
Yes, we did work that out, have made those conversations with Springdale Water Utility as well. They wanted to have a flat area in there. I think that all that is acceptable to Springdale Water and as far as I know, the engineering guys as well.
You need to provide finished floor elevations for each lot.
We did.
Okay, you need to have temporary construction, show the detail for that entrance. Your preliminary drainage report had to include pre-development areas and post-development calculations. There's some engineering comments that you needed to address before you can get plans approved before you can start construction. If a swell is proposed to be constructed between lots for drainage either to the street or to the drainage at the rear of the properties, the swell needs to be contained in a drainage easement. Lot 9 cannot drain onto Lot 10. There's some, and then we have that detention, that drainage easement around the detention pond itself. That's it.
Are there any comments from the audience on this issue? It's to the commission. Now, Patsy, you said something about parking on the street. It's not allowed on this?
This one it is, the design of the street they're going after allows for parking on the street. And the street is narrowed down, and it has areas that have to be shown to have curbs and places to protect that parking. It has to be designated where it's going to be on the street because they're going to a different design, and that all has to be included in their plan requirements too, so. And then the setback has to be 35 feet if they're going to do it smaller.
Right. So that's all been taken care of. Any other comments? Entertain a motion subject to staff comments.
Motion to approve, subject to staff comments.
Motion by Ms. Haney. Second by Mr. Covert. Roll call.
Pineda,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
Haney,
Yes.
Parker.
Passes 7-0. Next on the agenda will be PP 18-04, Summerview subdivision, north of Don Tyson, south of Julio Road, presented by Bates and Associates.
My name is Mike Pennington. I'm not with Bates and Associates. I'm the developer, but he is running a few minutes late, so I didn't know if we need a delay for a few minutes or I
Have you
can try to
purchased the
adjust.
property already? Have you closed on it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you're the property owner. He can represent himself if you, do you want to do it now or do you want to wait till somebody from your engineering?
Depends on how technical your questions
Well,
are.
I have some technical questions, so.
It probably ought to wait then.
Okay, we can move on now
All
if
right.
you want to, Mike.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda will be large-scale developments. Northwest Arkansas Community College, Washington County, south side of Watkins, due west of Arvis Ballpark, presented by McClellan Engineering.
Nathan Street again with McClellan Engineers. NWAC proposes to develop a two-story building totaling just under 40,000 square feet on this 20-acre site due west of Arvest Ballpark. And I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Staff comments?
All comments from the utility companies and other city departments must be addressed prior to approval of construction plans. And all residential, commercial, and industrial development submitted after August 1 of 2007, the utility lines have to be underground. There are some storm drainage issues and labeling pipes, pipe material, and detention areas, tributary pipes, and discharge areas must be within a drainage easement. I think that's basically it.
Are there any comments from the audience on this issue? If not, to the commission.
Motion to approve, subject to staff comments.
Motion by Ms. Haney. Second. Second by Mr. Covert. Roll call.
Powell,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
Haney,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Pineda.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda will be CCO Venue and Self-Storage, northeast corner of East Emma Avenue and Upton Lane, presented by EDA.
My name's James Gertz with EDA, the engineering project. We're doing a cultural/office building and a mini storage on Emma Street. Here to answer any questions you might have.
Staff comments.
An automatic or other irrigation system shall be required for all landscaped areas. Show irrigation system or location of hose bibs. Developers required to dedicate right-of-way of an abutting street in conformance with the City of Springdale Master Street Plan. A separate dedication document shall be submitted to the city for filing. All comments from the utility companies and other city departments must be addressed prior to approval of construction plans in all residential, commercial, and industrial developments after August of 2007. All utility lines have to be underground. Maximum height of a fence or a wall shall be 8 feet. Are you proposing a 7-foot on one side of this piece of property, a 7-foot fence?
I don't believe so. I think we're going with the 8 feet along the south side, and then, well, it kind of changes where we have the residential areas. I think we have to go to the 8 feet per code. So that's what we're doing. We got residential to the north and to the east.
Okay. We'll work out all those differences, but you're aware that those have to be changed to adjacent to residential areas.
Yeah.
You need to label, in the engineering comments, you need to label the pipe materials under the stormwater drainage. And you have an informal plot that's already been taken care of. I think that's all we have.
Is there anybody in the audience that'd like to comment on this issue? To the commission. Is there a lighting plan that has to be submitted on this?
Do we have a lighting plan? We have one, and it's good.
Okay, we got one, okay. Got a thumbs up back
Got
there.
a thumbs up back there. Yeah, I saw that too. His mic is not working, so he's going to give us hand signals, correct?
Any other comments? Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve, subject to staff comments.
Motion by Ms. Haney, second by Mr. Colbert. Roll call.
Tyler,
Yes.
Compton.
Yes.
Covert,
Yes.
Haney,
Yes.
Parker. Pineda,
Yes.
Powell.
Yes. Passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda will be L 18-21, Reliable Poultry Warehouse Development, 2974 East Emma Avenue, presented by USI.
Hello, my name is Rashawn Morris. I'm a USI Consulting Engineers, and I'm here to present our Reliable Poultry's warehouse and office development. It's approximately 30,000 square feet, which 24,000 of it will be warehouse, and the other 6,000 of it will be office space. I'm here to answer any questions or concerns.
Staff comments.
Per section 4 industrial districts, outdoor storage of trash receptacles shall be at the side or rear of the site and shall be totally enclosed or screened by a fence, planting, or other suitable visual barriers. I think we need to make sure the plans reflect that. Due to the agricultural zoning to the north and a single-family home on the parcel, a screening fence is required. You need to address the landscaping requirements. The frontage requires 8 trees have been provided and 11 are required. The combination of shrubs of 7 for 25 linear feet for street frontage. The perimeter landscaping is required. There's landscaping required for the parking lot itself. You have to have an irrigation system that needs to be showed, including the location of the system or the location of the hose bibs, and the landscaping has to be guaranteed for 2 years. All comments from utility companies and other city departments must be addressed prior to approval of construction plans. All commercial and industrial developments, all utility lines have to be underground. Engineering comments either show a detail for the temporary construction entrance or this is to be labeled. Provide the user the TC calculations for post-developed areas. The ordinance requirement is to include the word temporary on the labels to ensure that these are removed post-development. Please add the word temporary to the labels. Street lights, lighting can either be added or a waiver must be requested from the planning department. This will be required for final approval. I don't think there's any street lights, or they're at least not shown on your plan.
Correct.
there any comments from the audience on this issue? To the commission? Looking at this large scale, what materials are you going to use for your building?
It's going to be metal.
This is an industrial area, we don't have design standards for it.
Right,
Okay.
I understand that. Are there any comments from the commission?
Motion to approve, staff comments.
Motion to approve. Second by Mr. Covert, roll call.
Compton.
Yes.
Covert.
Yes.
Haney.
Yes.
Parker. Pineda.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Tyler.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you.
The next item, L18-22 Neely Homes property, west side of 56th Street, north of Sizemore Lane, has been tabled. And the one after it, B18-32 Home Builders and Developers Incorporated, 3829 South 56th Street, has been tabled by the applicant. So we'll move on to Board of Adjustment, will be B18-33 Professional Cabling Incorporated, 3370 Ford Avenue. Variance to allow gravel parking to the north of the warehouse, presented by Bates and Associates. Do we have anybody here representing Bates and Associates for B18-33?
Doing Mike's too, so we'll have to table that till they get here too.
Well, let's go back to the top, to the first, that
We get this one waiver. Do you want to go ahead and do this?
passed it up. We have a waiver. W18-19 Deborah Scott, 4568 West Seaton, waiver of sidewalk requirement. Is Deborah Scott here? All right.
You can go back. Sorry. Sorry about that.
We're going back to the first part of our tabled items. Randy, you ready?
Okay, did you bring the white notices that notices were
Yes.
sent out to adjacent property owners?
Well, I brought them like 2 weeks ago, and I brought the green cards just now to, I don't
Brought them
remember the day I brought them.
2 weeks ago?
Yeah, maybe more than that. I brought them in and, into your office.
You have your certified list too? Did you bring the certified list with it?
I think the surveyor emailed that.
Okay, we're good. Since yesterday. Okay, we're ready to go.
All right, for the record, this is R18-24, First Marshall East Full Gospel Church, 1799 Butterfield Coach Road, from A1 to P1, presented by Randy Ritchie.
All right, my name's Randy Ritchie. My address 12081 Center Point Church Road in Prairie Grove. Be happy to answer any questions you have.
Staff comments?
The adopted comprehensive land use plan indicates medium-density residential use for the area. The rezoning request is in keeping with the following goals and policies of the comprehensive land use plan, is recommended for approval. Uses that commonly have moderate to large-scale assemblies of people, such as churches, funeral homes, membership organizations, and other institutions, should be appropriately located on adequate side parcels with sufficient space to accommodate the off-street parking and accessory needs. Such uses should be located so as to minimize any adverse or undue significant burden on adjacent or adjoining land uses, as well as that portion of the street system. How's the property currently being used?
It's currently being used as a church, the existing building, and the existing building is going to stay there, not going to make any changes to it. They're proposing to build a fellowship hall classroom building separate, further over to the east behind the building that they have now in that grassy area. They don't really know exactly the size yet. We're going to have to back into the size of the building based on how much budget they can raise. So
Included
well-
in that budget would be paving the drive and paving parking areas and all that to
Yep.
go with it,
Yeah,
correct?
we've discussed that with the congregation, that there'll have to be, paved parking, paved driveway, probably a sprinkler system, all that stuff we're taking into account. So we're not ready to submit the large scale yet. That's why we're not doing them at the same time. We just aren't that far along, but we wanted to go ahead and get this done. It's non-conforming right now anyway, so it needs to be rezoned.
How long has the church been at this location?
That location has been a church for a very long time, 40, 50 years. But this particular congregation hasn't been there that whole time, but it has been a church for that long.
You know how long this congregation has been here?
I don't know. They're all out there. How long have you been at this building? 12? How many? 20 years.
Is there any comments from the audience on this issue? If none, to the commission.
Call for the vote?
Be a call for the vote from Ms. Haney. Roll call.
Covert,
Yes.
Haney,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Pineda,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Compton.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Thank
Staff will
you.
prepare the ordinance that goes to council on the 24th.
The other one we're going back to now will be a public hearing. It'll be C-18-16, Big Sexy Truck, Brent Hale, 205 East Johnson Avenue, Use Unit 44, in Center Type 1, presented by Brent Hale.
Good evening. My name is Brent Hale, and yeah, we're a food truck looking to go into the new Bike Rack Brewing location. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Staff comments?
This is similar to the ones that we had last time in the downtown area. The ingress and egress to the property is acceptable. The off-street parking and loading is acceptable. Refuge areas are acceptable. Utilities, they're making provisions for the utilities to be provided through that existing structure, and any gray water you're going to take care of.
Yes, we have a contract with White River, which is basically a septic system, not uncommon to like a porta potty kind of deal, that will come and remove all wastewater from us.
No screening or no screening is required. All the signage will be on the truck itself.
Correct.
The yard requirements are acceptable. The size and shape of the lot is acceptable. There's no requirements for landscaping. This will address the vision set forth in the adopted comprehensive master plan and the form-based code by capitalizing on public investments in existing infrastructure, ensure a complementary relationship with surrounding neighborhoods. The conditions would be it may not operate between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. If a health certificate is required, displace the health certificate in a manner visible to customers. No obstruction of pedestrian or motor vehicle traffic flow. No obstruction of traffic signals or regulatory signs. No vending upon a public street. No sound devices that produce a loud and raucous noise in violation of city ordinance or violate any other city ordinances in connection with the vending operation. Sites to remain clean and free of paper or refuse of any kind generated from the operation of the business, with all trash or debris accumulating within 20 feet of any vending state to be collected and deposited into trash containers.
Anybody from the audience want to comment on this issue? It'll be to the commission. Be a
Call
call.
for,
I've got a question.
Go ahead.
I just wondered where the big sexy truck will sit on the lot.
So that might be a better question for Jeff. He's the property owner, to be able to kind of dictate where that's going to be.
I was just curious.
Well,
not
what we
that-
talked about was for it to sit on the very west side, adjacent to that curb. There would still be room between that and the building to be able to go through there, so they'll be in that area. They'll still have the patio area on the south side and
That's
parking on the side.
Okay.
And actually, they have room for 2 trucks, they think, right? We laid all this all out before we got started, okay?
Any other comments?
call for the vote?
Call for the vote. Ms. Haney. Roll call.
Haney,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Pineda,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Compton,
Yes.
Covert.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Staff will prepare the resolution that goes to council on the 24th.
We're going back to preliminary plats, replats, and final plats. PP 18-04, Summerview subdivision, north of Don Tyson, south of Julio Road, presented by Bates and Associates.
Jeff Bates, if you don't have any questions. Sorry the traffic is a little worse than I thought it was going to be. I figure those rezonings will be here till 8.
Staff comments.
Okay, this started out as Shiloh Springs, and are we proposing to change the name from Shiloh Springs to Somerville? Or Summerview? Is that what we want to do? Well, as long as I know it's going to change and we can track it all the way through, whatever you want, but we... Okay, we're going to call this Summerview subdivision. Okay, remember when it came in as Shiloh Springs, it was a project to be built with 1 and 2 story townhomes marketed to moderate to middle income working families, and they were using tax credits. And the property was to remain in a single ownership, to be professionally managed by a local on-site manager with a maintenance technician that addresses any repairs that become necessary. We made a modification to this and took out that it would be rental rates to be a blend of market rate and affordable using tax credits. There's not going to be any tax credits used on this. This will all be single-family lots sold individually. So it's not going to be, as we start, it's not going to have a management company. They are proposing a POA that would be established to monitor and to help take care of this. The difference being, because it's a PUD, all of the standards the city can enforce, because it is a PUD, for the type of housing to be built, how it's going to maintain. You can't park on the grass, you can't enclose a garage. All those things that are listed in this would become part of the city's responsibility as part of the PUD. The only difference is the common area, and Sarah and I talked about that today. It indicates that the POA would be responsible for the common area. And it indicates in here that the POA would be established and will be active to help perform and enforce all requirements, restrictions, and covenants placed on the property. POA dues will be collected and used for maintenance of common areas and the establishment of a legal fund to help enforce requirements and restrictions when needed. That's how they're proposing to take care of all those things. We don't have a dollar amount that was indicated for what would be put in for the legal fund, and I assume, Mike, you would have control of the POA till a certain point, and then it gets turned over, and you didn't address that in here to tell us when that POA gets turned over to the property owners themselves. So we need that clarified. Okay.
And I can address that.
You need to come up here, please. That's just we haven't got to the rest of the comments, but we got to start with this first.
Well, with the minimum stuff that you wanted for need to be presented for the PUD, but there'll be an additional added covenants on top of that that will be more specific than what's just in that document. It'll just magnify it and actually have
okay, but if it's not in this document that the city adopts, there's not any way for the city to
I understand
enforce
that, but what I'm saying, that was the bare minimum.
Okay.
The rest of it's just for the subdivision as a whole.
Okay, except that how we deal with the POA to handle the common areas is an area we still need to, and Sarah may want to address that, because we've had some problems with that in the future, so
Well,
that just came up today. She may want to address that.
I'm sorry.
I'm just speaking on past experience with what we have dealt with PUDs in the past. There is a certain PUD where the common areas were designated to be maintained by the POA. Well, there is no operating POA, so we don't really have an enforcement mechanism because we don't have a party to hold accountable to that. So unless there's something specifically written into the documents that we have as part of the PUD, it would be really difficult for the city to enforce any type of, weeds, any type of city ordinance violation that happened on the common areas.
Okay, so we'll come back to that. Let me do the rest of the comments on the subdivision itself. The street names will need to be provided and approved prior to final plat acceptance. All comments from the utility companies and other city departments must be addressed prior to approval of construction plans. Please be aware that the master street plan with design you choose does not allow for parking on the street, and the front setback must be adjusted to 35 feet. That has to be marked. And you also have in your covenants you can't park on the street, right? You can't park in the grass. When resubmitting the final preliminary plat, please submit the plat separate. The construction drawings will go to the engineering department. Please identify the UE as public UEs. We need finished floor elevations for each applicable lot. We need easements have to be filed before acceptance and approval of plans. No structure may be constructed in an access easement or drainage easement. Fences built across drainage easements shall not impede the flow of stormwater flow and must have removable panels to allow drainage system maintenance. You have to have a grading permit. You should know that. I think I think that's the extent of the comments. Let me see if there's one more on this page. Grading and silt fences may not extend beyond the property line without written permission from the neighboring property owners. That's basically it.
Is there any comments from the audience on this item? If you'll state your name and address, please.
My name is Bob Trammell, 3362 Butterfield Coach Road. Our property is directly south of this, and my only concern is the water runoff. You know, is that, because it's going to create a lot of water coming down across us.
Well, this was talked about, what, 10, 11 months ago?
Right. It's been on the agenda before, and it's changing from rental units.
Is this voting to change it from what it was to what they want it now?
Right. With this layout, the layout hasn't changed a lot from what was originally proposed. It will be individual lots to be sold rather than a project that was all managed by one company. It will not be restricted to have tax credits. It will be market values, and they will be sold as individual lots.
So there's really no control over what they can do?
Well, single-family homes is all they can build.
Pardon?
Single-family homes is all they can build in there.
But before, it was going to be like, I can't think of the word I'm looking for. It was going to be more of like, they had someone that was in charge of, and how it could be controlled.
That's correct.
But now we're not.
No, they're proposing that that's not going to happen. They're going to sell individual lots. But we do have, as part of the PUD documents, how much brick they have to use or stone, that kind of information. But they will all be individually owned, and there will not be a management company that's going to manage the entire thing.
What's the size of the houses?
We don't know at this point. It's,
Mike, you need to come to the microphone, please.
This, what we were trying to do, because we did talk to several, and if you're the gentleman next door, I guess I didn't catch you home, but we thought as far as the neighborhood, it'd be better to try to go non-multifamily and go to single-family ownership, but have an upper scale type subdivision in a smaller package. So we're talking smaller homes in the sense of probably 1,600 to 2,000 square feet, 90 to 100% brick and stone, sodded yards, wood privacy fences. The covenants are very restrictive. There can't be things put in the yard. There can't be toys. There can't be grass kept up. The POA, of course, is going to have to be, during the early part, we can enforce it pretty heavily. But my incentive and what I put in the documents is that we're going to try to educate the people who buy those homes, as well as the realtors and the builders who are involved, that they have to educate their buyers. And that means they have to present those covenants and let them understand that they're going to have to be bound by those covenants to live there. That means they have to maintain their yards. They have to be mowed. But again, that's pride of ownership, and all you can do is try to instill that in people on the front end. But I think it's so much better than a multifamily situation because, again, things change as years goes on. And I think that was approved based on it being a majority vinyl and a little bit of rock or around those multifamily units. These are going to be upper scale with architectural shingles. They have to have a landscape package in the front of the house. So it'll be a nice little neighborhood.
And it'll definitely be fenced?
Well,
Or is that
the yards will be fenced. As they build those houses, they'll put wood privacy fences, and they all have to match. So, but again, that was a lot to put in that document.
You don't
So,
have in here that fences are required, though.
like I said, that's why that other document will have more. But
Well, but the city can't enforce it if you
I
don't put it in
understand that.
this.
But
Okay.
again, we want to make sure that we got the basics down so that you understand we're trying to make something a little nicer than what's normal. And again, it's far outweighs multifamily. I mean, it's just a much better situation for that area.
You don't have a minimum house size? It's not in this document
No, because
either.
we're trying to let the builders decide what that market would be. Again, if they're put in a box where we have to say it's a minimum of 1,800 or something, we want them to tell us where that market's driving. They've got people calling that are empty nesters that would rather have a cottage type situation. Those people are like 55 and older. They could be first-time home buyers, or they could be up-and-coming couples. We don't know, but the thing is, whether it's a 1,500 square foot house or whether it's a 2,000 square foot house, the restrictions are still the same. So when they present that, and there was some sample pictures of some of the houses, if you want to show those,
We've got those.
that'll give you kind of a flavor of what there would be. There's not going to be any of this all vinyl or majority of that type structure. It'll be more brick and stone. Again, they have to have sod, they have to have landscaping. And the builders I'm working with, you know, they're wanting to do something a little bit different than what's been done. So,
Are they restricted to, this is the house plans you have to choose from?
no, but like I said, these lots are 60 foot wide, so they're fairly limited on variations. But as you can see, those type are what we're trying to mimic. And to say this is the only plan you can build may limit them greatly, depending on the client. So we want to make them be able to make money. So
41 houses is a lot over there.
it is, but you would have had 76 units in multifamily over there. So
My only concern is the things, now you did say the exterior has to be 90% or more of the structure. High-grade vinyl siding may be used in gable areas. Pre-finished aluminum fascia and soffit fascia is to be 2x6. Roofing materials, such materials shall be upper grade 25-year architectural shingle or better. Attached garages shall be used for the parking of the occupants' vehicles and shall not be used or converted for living space. Parking on the grass or in the yard is prohibited. All yards of each home will be sodded. The front yard must have at least one tree and landscaping along the front of the home. Landscaping to be installed prior to occupancy of the dwelling. Irrigation system to be required, but is not required, but strongly recommended at least in front yards. That's all that's included in this document that the city can enforce as part of this PUD. What you have in this document today, that's all we're getting, that's the minimum we're getting today. Okay.
Any other comments from the audience?
We still need to address the drainage issue.
All right. We're adding a detention pond, and the runoff is going to be, the peak runoff will be a lot less than it is now because we made it bigger than it really had to be. So you'll see an improvement. I can explain it to you.
Now, we don't have anybody here from engineering, so we don't know if the detention pond itself has been approved. I mean, the concept, we don't approve concept of detention anymore because the engineering department takes care of it. And I don't know, there wasn't any comments in there, specific comments about the detention pond itself, so I can't answer that for you tonight, but. Putting in streetlights, correct? That's part of it.
To the commission?
So my questions and concerns are if we can't enforce in their property owner association, how does that give us any security?
Well, we can enforce what has to be done on each of the individual lots to those items I just identified. We can't, and Sarah, you need to help me here. The problem with the POA having the common areas for maintenance is who do we contact for that POA? If it's not active, what do we do?
Yeah, who the party would be to that, because they could have something in the covenants as to a properties owners association, but we can't act on the covenants. We can only act on what is written into the language of what is submitted to us. So if the property owners association is the group that is tasked with maintaining the common areas, and there is no working property owners association to speak of, then the city doesn't have much of an enforcement mechanism. Does that make sense? Because you have to have an adverse party.
So what do we do as a city? What should we ask for to protect that? For them to add the wording that if there is no working property owners association, then each property can be assessed for
I mean,
that?
there are a number of ways that could be written in there. There would just need to be something in there to address. There would have to be more than what there is now.
Okay, so
that's what I would ask for.
But I think, and again, forgive me if I'm speaking out of turn, but I think you're missing the point. The POA will be active. I mean, I will file a POA, I will establish the POA and be enforcing that before I leave, that there is an active POA. That means you have a president, vice president. Now, 2 years from now, I can't guarantee you that.
That's the problem.
But the
we
point
need
is, you
to-
can't guarantee that with anything. It wouldn't even be the same thing with that management company. Let's say you had a multifamily, you've got a management company. Who says 2 years from now that management company dissolves and they're no longer there? You're going to have the same problem. So it's really trying to instill in people to get involved with their community and take pride in ownership. I think, again, this type quality, the price per square foot that we're going to have to charge for these homes because of the brick and the architecture shingles and all the things that are being required, these are going to be nice homes.
But this is a PUD, and
I understand.
And I live in a subdivision with a property owners association that does not have money because nobody pays into it, and they do not, you know, I read that and it was active when I started, but nobody ever paid money into it. They were just
Well,
active as a group. So when it came time
I
that
understand.
someone in the middle of the street was breaking those rules, there was no way we could enforce it because nobody wanted to pay
But
to
again,
hire an
on the
attorney.
front end, when someone closes a house in here, they have to pay their dues. Now, I don't know what that amount will be. We haven't established that. So immediately when a builder sells a house, he will collect that due and it goes into a fund that stays there. Because really the only maintenance will be that pond. So the rest of it will go and it will just continue to stack up. Then as soon as that subdivision is built out to a percentage where there's enough people, and again, where you establish that camaraderie in a neighborhood for safety, for everybody taking care of their property, just to instill that, then that will be handed over. I just can't say 3 years, 10 years down the road that will remain that way.
But I believe you can write something in that would give that additional protection, just like.
and that's why we put it in there.
Just like you can add in something that says they do have to have the fences done. Don't tell us that we're only gonna give you the minimum and then we'll put the rest in there, but the city can't enforce that, because then I don't feel very good about that subdivision anymore.
Well, I think, again, that's not so much that we're putting the most minimum in the document. We needed something to get us past this point. But again, I didn't know really how much you needed in there. I didn't know what was going to be satisfactory to the board for this. I just think, again, this is such a better product than multifamily. I think, again, it's an upper product in a smaller package. There's a need on that on the east side to instill a little bit more, quality product that'll last longer, that'll look better. Again, and it's just trying to get people to take pride in community. And we're going to try that on the front end, and hopefully that will display.
Do we have lots that fall lower than our minimum standards for not a PUD?
I think your smallest lot size is a 60-foot lot, right?
There's 60-foot wide lots, yeah.
Just give them the detention pond, then they can maintain it.
So what is lot 12 that's 45 feet?
Well, that's a drainage easement.
Okay.
And again, I have no problem with letting you have the retention pond and maintaining if that's the issue, because the rest of it's just single-family homes that will be mowed and maintained by them. If they do not mow their yards, then that legal fund or that POA is hopefully going to enforce and instill in them, you're doing that or we're putting a lien against your property. And we're going to mow it for you. And you're not going to be able to sell your house until that bill's paid. So, again, I can't be a police officer in that sense. But again, there's only one common space, and that's the retention pond. And you're more than welcome to take that over if the city wants it.
This earlier, and I apologize if I missed it. You said as long as you were in control of the POA, is there a timeline for that? Do you know how long that is?
Well, usually, and I've been doing this a long time, we try to wait until the subdivision is built out to the point where we feel like there's enough people in there, that there's enough money built up and enough cooperation and interest that we can hand it over. So it's kind of political. You meet with neighbors and say, hey, how you guys feel like, let's get in this thing and electing officers, and you hand it over.
Is it 20%, is it 30%, is it 80%?
Usually it's 75%. So, you know, it may take a year and a half before we're even close to handing it over, depending on the market, but it may be sooner. But, you know, usually it just depends on the group of people. You may have a retired person or someone that's just gung-ho, they want to take it over and be in charge, but that's not always the case.
I'm sorry if I'm ignorant on this, but I know that there's got to be other subdivisions, several, that have common area. But what's the difference between those and this one? Is it because it's a PUD or?
Well, we have some subdivisions with POAs that work really well. We have some subdivisions with POAs that do not work at all.
And some subdivisions, I assume, that don't have a
They don't
POA
have-
at all.
Because there's no common areas.
Okay.
The time when you have to have a POA is if you have a common area. Sometimes it's just signs, sometimes it's median, sometimes it's drainage facilities, that kind of stuff. In this one, it's an area larger than just the detention pond itself, correct?
Well, it's majority retention pond. I mean, it's there, you know, the drainage that was coming across from the other area, for some reason, that subdivision never had a retention pond put in. I've been doing this for a long time, and why there was not a retention pond put up to the north, I have no idea. But because of that, we're having to expand that pond area out to handle the water from our subdivision, but also to get that to the other property in a manner that's acceptable. So I guess I'm not understanding what the reason for it.
So my question is, so there will be a POA set up, and when they buy a home there, they'll have to pay. Do you know what that POA fee is?
I would
Have you
say somewhere
figured-
between $250 to $300
A year?
a year.
So there will be a POA, and it will have $300 per house that's sold every year go into that, right?
Well, and of course, initially, when that builder sells it, the title company will collect that at
They'll collect
closing,
it.
so it goes in the account and sits
Right,
there.
Right.
And so, again, it'll just sit there. There's really not a whole lot of fees
How many
there.
lots are in there?
41.
So
So do the
41
math.
times 200. So my thing is, I guess my point is that even if at some point down the road we fail to have a president and a vice president of the POA, there's still a POA account. There's still a POA account with money
That's right.
going into it every year. Could the city not, you know, get that money somehow to?
And I will just speak as to the issues that we have dealt with, and I'm speaking as to PUDs because it's
Yeah,
the
not-
issue
this
where
is
we've had to
totally
come
out
up.
of my- so I'm just asking.
There was no fund because there was no operating POA, so it was just sitting there at that point. So that's why my recommendation is just to have a little bit more verbiage in there than what there is now, just so we can make sure that there is some kind of enforcement mechanism.
And is there any problem with just a little bit of additional, I mean, because it doesn't seem like it, I mean, again, this is kind of like a backstop. It doesn't seem like this is probably going to be a problem, but just in case. So
It's a just in case,
Yeah,
and
so
I'm
is
not
it-
making any assumption about the developer or anything, just
Right.
legally what we have.
So if we put just something in there, and I don't know, I mean, you have a recommendation, but
Well, and it may be that you can work with the city attorney's office until we get the language that they're comfortable with to add to this document that covers the common areas. So it could be approved, subject to the city attorney's office signing off on the language for the common areas. Because we're giving a preliminary plat approval. They've got to go in and do all of the improvements and, 80% of the street has to be in, 90% of the water and sewer has to be in before they can come back for a final plat. So they have some time to work those kind of things out together.
And I don't have any issue doing it like that.
Yeah, I mean, that
I
doesn't
just
have to
want-
hold it up tonight.
I think that's
It's just an issue that
important.
needs to be worked on.
yeah,
It's
I just want
important
them to
because-
be able to get started knowing that when all the lots sell, they'll have $8,000 in there every year.
As long as those
You know.
protective language is in, so that the city has some way to come forth, I'm fine with it. So. if
But
we
I
can-
would still, and again, I know this sounds fine, but I would, if you guys need the pond and would prefer to maintain it, which it sounds like there was another subdivision which you take it over in 2 years, you're welcome to that if this is a concern.
Well, I was
Think
just
they
gonna
want
say,
to.
the drainage criteria manual used to say that all residential detention ponds became deeded over to the city after 2 years for maintenance. I don't know if that changed with the new drainage criteria manual or not, and we don't have anybody from engineering that can address that. So I don't know if it's changed or
Sure,
not.
but either way, I'm fine with that. I'm just, the whole reason for the POA from my standard is try to instill some teeth for this subdivision for those people who are gonna move in there and truly want to make this a nice, quality subdivision for Springdale. So that was my main purpose of this.
I mean, you're doing what people have always, tried to do with a POA.
Yeah.
And we've just apparently learned that there's a little bit of a loophole that
I mean, the only
we
difference
end up
this
not
is-
having teeth, so I
Yeah,
mean, I feel like.
But the only
yeah.
difference, this is a PUD, and I understand that. But if this was not a PUD and I was presenting this, I'm not sure this would even be a question.
Well, you might not get 60-foot lots if you were not.
That's true.
You're
That's
you're
true.
doing the
I
PUD so
understand.
you can have the 60-foot lots too,
I understand.
okay?
Yes,
So there
ma'am.
is one advantage to you as
Yes,
part
ma'am.
of this too. Okay.
Okay.
This is preliminary, so recommend if we do a motion, it'd be a motion subject to staff and attorney comments.
Right, and so that we would have those things worked out in a document that the city attorney's office is comfortable. When we get to the final plat, it all has to be put together in one document at the same time again, so.
And I would make that motion subject to that verbiage
Subject to
getting
staff
added.
and city attorney comments. We have a motion on the table. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Covert. Roll call, please.
Parker,
Yes.
Compton. Yes. Covert. Haney,
Yes.
Pineda,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Tyler.
Yes.
Passes 7-0.
So we just need to get together after, in the next, we got time. You haven't broke ground yet. You don't have plans and specs approved yet either, so. You know, we got this professional.
Okay, do we
which is
have
all-
anybody representing professional cabling? All right, next item on the agenda will be B18-33, Professional Cabling Incorporated, 3370 Ford Avenue, variance to allow gravel parking to the north of the warehouse, presented by Bates and Associates.
Jason Young with Bates and Associates. The reasoning for the variance is this is a warehouse going to be loading and unloading equipment and supplies from the warehouse into trucks, get them on site. And the vehicles that will be used are tracked, and those vehicles will tear up any kind of concrete, asphalt paving. There's also several, I think a majority of the businesses in this area have gravel paving, so there's definitely a precedent for it. The storage area will be fenced and screened per landscape requirements and everything, so.
Staff comments?
Have you submitted a drawing that shows what area you want to leave as gravel, and are there paved parking areas and drives in the front?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, there's paved parking, probably 100 feet into the lot.
Aaron, do we have a drawing to identify the area they want, the variance for it to remain gravel? Did y'all submit a drawing?
I submitted an exhibit. I submitted our site plan for the large scale.
Okay. Okay.
But all of the vehicle parking areas will be paved asphalt.
Yeah, we just need to know what the dimension, or the area that's.
So only the tracked vehicle will be parked on the gravel part?
That is correct.
Not the other vehicles that are bringing things to be unloaded?
That is correct.
Okay.
What kind of, and this is, cable, big, spools of cable, for a better term, I don't know what you call it.
Sure, like internet cable, telephone, just for buildings. From what I understand, that's what they supply and install.
And it comes in large spools that have to be moved like that, rather than in a,
Yeah, they do large spool cables. They bury cable all over the place.
Yeah, without that, it's hard to. Might just add, the gravel area is gonna be behind the screen fence. Everything pretty much halfway down the building forward is all paved and landscaped in the parking area, and part of the drives are, it's just what's in the back mostly.
Can I make a comment while you're looking?
Sure, go ahead.
Just the areas that you see around you that have gravel that you say that's the standard, they are probably grandfathered in and not
Sure.
part of.
I understand that.
so-
And that,
Okay, I
that was
wanted
just
to
my,
make that clarification.
yeah, that was just one of my justifications for the
But-
variance is that while I understand that there,
I think we allow it with certain types of equipment,
Correct.
but not vehicles that are on the road as a standard.
Correct.
So,
but I do know that there's actually storage of materials in some of the gravel areas in the area as well.
but those were grandfathered in. So you
Okay.
can't, if that's grandfathered in, we don't take that into account. You
Okay.
can't say next door they're doing that if it was grandfathered in.
I guess I wasn't
That's
aware
not
that it was
a
grandfathered
reason,
in. There's
so-
the business across the street, I think it's a relatively new large scale and they have gravel as well, so I don't know what the timeline was when things were built or not. That's kind of hard to determine.
Okay, what's the size of the building you're proposing?
I don't have the site plan. What's the size of the building?
9,600 square feet.
9,600 square feet.
Did you find the drawing, Aaron?
No, we don't have network
Oh, we don't have internet service, so we can't.
Y'all wanna make the meeting go longer, I can go get it.
Well, I've got one here, but you show proposed, okay, well, let me back up and say, you have an entrance off of the drive, you have parking along the front of the building, a parking along the side, then you have a drive that goes along the west side of the property and ends to a proposed gravel area, and then all the area in the back is what you're proposing to be gravel.
Yes, ma'am. That drive that goes north towards the dumpster pad is a hard surface for fire requirements.
For here, to go to this, so this would be hard surface up to here. All
That's
of this
correct.
outline like that would be hard surface. This is the area that would remain gravel.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah,
It's really
that's-
hard to see on this. You guys can look at it really quickly. if you want to.
So are trucks turning around? Like, can you do a drive where the track vehicle can stay on one side? The trucks that come to be unloaded can be on a drive
If you
to
look at that
reduce
drawing, it
dust?
kind of shows that. So will the fence be along that hard surface? Or will it be, how would that fence look?
The fence begins where the gravel begins and then is around the entire perimeter of the north side of the lot and comes back into where the building is, the northwest corner,
So
northeast
you're
corner
not
of the
going to
building.
see any of the gravel?
No, no. As part of the landscape requirements, buffering requirements, I believe it's required that opaque fence is there with tree plantings. And so it will be screened.
Okay.
That's actually, sorry, man, that's not, it's a industrial zone, so it's not an opaque fence requirement, so.
Oh, is it? Okay.
So,
It's industrial, not commercial.
yeah, and
All right.
they are, just for the commission's sake, for outdoor storage of materials in an industrial area, you're allowed to put the materials on gravel. There's nothing in the ordinance that says otherwise. We have a very specific detailed statement that says for commercial businesses of that nature, that they have that very strict kind of screening requirement, but not necessarily for this one, so. Just so you know what we're getting here.
You will be putting up more than likely chain link fence for security rather than screening.
Yeah.
I believe that's the plan, yes, ma'am.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I
no.
joked about that the other day.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron.
We have no internet service right now that people are even up with, right? Unless- Kind of at a disadvantage right here.
Yeah.
Can this be approved or consider it allowing the staff to work with them to outline an area that can be allowed to be storage of materials on the areas where the track equipment is going to operate, and everything else has to be paved for trucks in and out? Any place they have vehicles would have to be paved. That would be the only places where you're storing materials and using that actual track equipment.
So any place that doesn't have the tracked vehicles would need to be paved, is that? I think that's more up to the client, the builder, than me. I don't want to make any assumptions about
And you don't have a,
what,
Greg, are you doing this one?
Yes,
I'm trying to keep you from getting tabled.
okay.
So that we would, only the areas where the big spools and stuff are going to be stored, that has to be moved with track equipment, that's the only areas that can be gravel, and we would have to designate on that plan where that's gonna be.
Well, what they do is they have, I don't know, 7 or 8 pieces of track equipment, and they actually install the cable with this track equipment. It's a dozer, and I don't know, it has a ripper on the back of it that rips the ground and puts cable in the ground. And I don't know, when you bring a lowboy in to unload a dozer, you need quite a bit of room. I mean, I can't say that they're just gonna use this little area if they've already got 5 rigs parked back there.
Well, are you familiar with what's marked on that plan that was submitted as the area to be gravel?
Yeah.
Is
I
that,
thought everything other than a little strip on the left when you go in the gate was all gravel at the back.
Well,
That's
that's
the
not-
way I understand. That's the last drawing I saw.
that's not what that shows.
Well, where is the one that shows that?
My, my plans have not changed since we did the original design. It shows gravel going everywhere except for where the fire turnaround is,
There's a road on the left, just like through the gate.
as
All the
required
way
by.
back to the dumpster.
And I have one question. Why do we even, I think that we had to do that because of the fire lane, is that correct?
Yes, that was required by fire.
Okay.
Can that not be done with just gravel?
Okay, Dwayne.
I thought any hard surface area that was drivable was,
I mean,
didn't
we,
think it had to be paved.
we can go with a plan like that's on there that shows it paved all the way down to where the dumpster is, which is what you asked for the fire, as a fire code requirement.
The plan, the last one I saw has hardened surface that goes back to the loading dock that has a modified, or a 70-foot hammerhead turnaround. Is that correct? Yeah.
Do we have to have that for a fire line?
Yes, to get within 150 feet of all exterior parts of a non-sprinkled building.
So we have to have a paved, if we have to have that, I'll do it.
Okay, so you would be good with the drawing that shows.
I have to do it that way, I will. If he's saying that that's the requirement, I will do it that way. So it has to be a hard surface drive then?
That's what's shown on that plan, and that's what
Yeah,
we're agreeing
I'm
to.
just asking if that's
Yeah.
what it has to be, is a paved?
Fire access has to be an all-weather driving surface, which is considered
All
paved.
weather is different than paved. All weather is an SB2 drive. I mean, SB2 is all weather.
Okay, we're not gonna argue that here. The question that we ask is if you are willing to go with that plan, the way it shows it being concrete, that would have to be acceptable to you guys. I'm just proposing.
But the only vehicles that are gonna be parked in that is the tracked vehicles, once they've been unloaded. So you'll drive a vehicle, unload that, and that vehicle that had the equipment on it will not be left back there, correct?
Right, Greg, the low boy that takes it back there will not continue to stay back there. It has to be moved back out of that gravel area.
Now, what was that again? What has to be moved out?
If we're gonna comment, Greg, we need you to get to the microphone if you don't mind.
Just to clarify, the question is whether the delivery vehicles, the delivery supplies would be parked overnight on the gravel.
Are you saying that he can't park his lowboy back there in the back of the building?
We're asking, are you saying that that low boy would be parked back there in that gravel
Yes,
area?
it will. He owns it. He would park it in that fenced-in area along with all the rest of his equipment, and along with probably 10 bucket trucks and probably
Okay,
15 pickups.
So then the area is not just for storage of roll?
No, ma'am.
Okay,
No, it never was just for storage of material.
well,
But because you
But
have,
there will be some cable back there, I'm sure. There's big rolls. I mean, there will be a few rolls of cable sitting on
but
the ground
because you
back
have
there.
tracked vehicles back here is why you're asking.
Yes,
for that,
we
because
have-
you will
I mean,
have
yes,
track
that's
holes
exactly
back-
right.
Dozers, stuff like that back in there.
Yes.
And it will be moving the equipment around to
It
load
moves
up.
some of the equipment around, it moves around, you have to load it up, it will be driven around, it has to be worked on, of course, brought in the building to be worked on. And we put rails in the floor of the building, have used railroad rails, and stick them up a little bit above the concrete so you can drive them in there and not tear the concrete up.
So you can maintain your equipment in there, right?
Yes, exactly.
So are we required to have that paved?
any
Or
place that there are vehicles.
stored does have to be paved, even if it's
Your request says the proposed warehouse will be used, tracked vehicles to load and unload materials and equipment to and from the warehouse. Said tracked vehicles should damage any hard surface pavement. That leads us to believe that it's only for storage of materials and equipment, not that you would have the lowboy or dump trucks or anything else parked back there. I think we got a little bit.
I don't think we would fence that much area without having, I mean, the guy has, I don't know how many pickups. I'm sure he's not letting everyone drive those home. I'm sure there'll be 5 or 6 at night parked back there.
Then it's gonna have to be paved. That's our regulation.
The whole thing has to be paved if I park one truck back there?
Well, what we're asking for you to designate the area that would not be used to park pickup trucks and regular dump trucks and everything there. The areas that you have that heavy equipment on would be different than the entire back area to be all gravel.
I can do that, but I cannot guarantee you that if you go out there one day, that there's not gonna be a truck parked out of a position, because, I mean, you have 20 guys come in the evening, and it's 100 degrees outside. I can assure you, they're trying to get out of there as fast as they can. And they're not going to, I mean, there's gonna be a mistake made. I can designate it, and I can show you where they should be parked, but
Well,
I
I
can't
think
guarantee you they'll get parked there.
That would be your job to educate them or whoever
Well, I
is
can
in charge
educate them,
of
but I
that.
can't stand down there and make them park them there. I mean,
On the, you can hang out here, but, on the industrial section, when you do the exemption for the heavy equipment, generally there is a covenant section in there that makes it treat the agreement with the city like a covenant. It's in the first couple paragraphs, so that we do have an enforcement mechanism if code enforcement was to go out there and there was a non-designated area for the large equipment that was being utilized, you know, for that purpose, then they would have a means to enforce it. So, I mean, that is something that it does outline that in the ordinance, so you have a clear way forward, so.
I guess what we really don't have tonight is a clear area knowing exactly what you want to be gravel and what you don't want to be gravel. And so if we don't make that decision tonight, does that hold you up too much that you can come back with a?
It won't kill me if you don't make that decision tonight.
Okay, I would suggest that we table this and we get a clear drawing and you indicate what areas you want to be left gravel and what those areas are gonna be used for so that there's no question about this in the future.
As long as they will still issue me a building permit so I can get started. If they'll do that, then I don't have a problem with tabling it. I mean,
Okay.
I know I'm gonna have to follow the rules.
I mean, it's an approved large scale, so it just has to be, you know, built to the purposes that it is, so, yeah.
You can't occupy the building until we get all this resolved.
I'll have this resolved before we
Okay.
occupy.
Okay, so are you asking us to table it so we can work through that?
That's fine. You bet.
This issue is gonna be tabled.
Can I ask one more question? As far as the clarity of the drawing, what would you like to see? Because, I mean, maybe it's just the way the drawing was printed off, maybe a darker hatch, because, I
We
mean.
just make sure we all understand the areas that you intend to leave gravel.
Okay, like actual square footage, dimensions, and all that, okay.
Yeah, we can, I'll work with him on it, and then if we can get maybe a picture of the equipment so the commission can know exactly what it is, so they can have a little clarification, maybe that'll help out as well.
And, yeah, what the plan is on the parking situation
Just
of
work
that
with me.
equipment.
Sure. Thanks, Eric.
Has Deborah Scott shown up? So the waiver for W 18-19, individual not showed up, this will be tabled. Planning Director's report.
We talked at the work session about getting builders involved in looking at the design standards. I am having trouble getting commitments for people to meet in July. July is a tough month, so I'm gonna keep trying, kind of leave it open for our regular meeting night. If that doesn't work, I'll let y'all know, but 1 or 2 is not enough for us to get a good, well, we can do that too, but I think it probably would be to our advantage to have a few comments from builders. And so if you'll give me that discretion, I'll try after tomorrow and see if I can get a little bit better response from people. Okay?
Anything else?
Nope.
Anything from the commission? The gavel is about to be dropped. We're adjourned.